Well, it's great to be here. Thank you to Simon and to the Civic Exchange for allowing ExxonMobil the opportunity to share some insights into meeting the ECA fuel sulfur requirements. It's been 16 years since I was last here in Hong Kong, and I'm sorry to all of you because I seem to have brought the wet weather with me from the UK. Over recent weeks and even over lunch today, many people have asked what's going to happen with fuels and what should they do. An easy question to ask, but certainly not an easy one to answer. But the bottom line is this: there is not only one option. It's an increasingly complex world, and I'm going to share some of what ExxonMobil is doing to help you make informed choices. If I could predict the future, I probably wouldn't be here or wouldn't be with ExxonMobil for the last 20 years or so. The majority of that time, as has been said, has been on the marine fuel side, but I also have a remit for lubricants as well. I'm going to spend the next 19 minutes or so taking you through some of those challenges, clarifying some of the confusion, and sharing some of the opportunities to address these challenges. I'll also share with you some information on the ECA fuels that ExxonMobil manufactures, allowing for safer management during fuel switchover and safer use in boilers on board vessels. And I'll take questions at the end with Penny and the panel interview and a couple of others. The marine fuel market is undergoing complex and far-reaching change, as a lot of you have been hearing over this morning and this afternoon session, largely as a result of the legislative changes, especially in light of the 0.10% sulfur cap in ECAs, which has triggered development of a range of different ECA-compliant fuels and products of differing formations. I get the Hat-Trick Award now for sharing this slide for the third time. One point is, for the dotted line on the right-hand side that you see, will the decision to go to the global cap of 0.5% happen in 2020 or in 2025? Europe seems to want to put this in 2020. But the key here to note is it's dependent on the outcome of the supply availability review. And I'll capture some of that with you a little bit later on. So how have vessel operators fared now, and what of the future? So let's talk about the industry since the start of this year and what we have observed. There are a number of options available depending on individual circumstances. ECA marine gas oil, so the top point here. This is often the default choice for many. Distillate fuel in marine applications is competing, however, with a much larger demand from land-based applications. It's indeed expected that diesel will account for 70% growth in transportation fuel over the next 25 years. New products, the new ECA category fuels, new products like ExxonMobil Premium HDME 50 sit between distillate and fuel oils. But the best of both worlds, but I'll cover a little bit on that in a short while. We expect liquefied natural gas to have a big impact in marine, although the take-up for it as a bunker fuel currently is quite slow. The infrastructure is limited, but it is growing. Tomorrow you'll hear more from Richard Colwell, who will cover a little bit more on LNG, so I'm not going to steal any of his thunder. Abatement technology, commonly referred to as scrubbers. We've also heard a little bit on that this morning and this afternoon as well. They're also part of the marine energy mix and will allow vessels to continue to burn heavy fuel oil. There are other alternatives as well, ethanol and such like. But ultimately, we believe there is not only one solution that meets all the requirements. So let's take a look at the top two in a little bit more detail. MGO is the default choice for most due to its global availability. However, it's not quite as simple as that. You may need coolers or chillers to be installed to obtain a more suitable injection viscosity. Often, the pumps are designed originally to handle fuel oil and are meant to operate at high temperatures. The primary concern when changing over fuel is the temperature gradient, typically going from 130 Celsius in the engine down to about 30 Celsius for gas oil. This raises concern about thermal shocks to engine components, which can lead to fuel pump seizing, engine shutdown, and ultimately a stranded vessel. For the non-technical amongst you, imagine putting cold water into a hot glass. What would happen? The glass would probably break due to that thermal shock. The press has also highlighted the risk of distillates with 2 lower flash points entering the marine supply pool. The flash points for automotive use is lower than that of the minimum flash point of 6 degrees Celsius, which is a SOLAS requirement for shipping. Recently, I've also been made aware of several vessels that have lost propulsion as a result of using marine gas oil. They were losing hundreds of litres per day through fuel pump leakages, and they lost power as the injectors seized. There are different terms that the media has used to describe the new ECA products, but being first to market affords us the honour of being able to refer to these as the ECA category fuels. Often sharing the benefits of both a fuel oil and a gas oil, it should, of course, have the low sulphur to meet the ECA requirements, but also has higher viscosity and is less volatile. The latter two reducing the risk of engine damage and boiler damage, or worse still, an explosion. So, in a little bit more detail, naturally, these new ECA category fuels should not exceed the sulphur cap. ExxonMobil manufactures its products with a safety buffer so that it not only meets the ISO limit, but also helps to achieve the MARPOL standard. And if you look to the second decimal place, it's not just 0.1, it's 0.10. So if you're a little bit high on that, you're exceeding the MARPOL standards. The ISO standard allows for certain test tolerances, whereas if you just exceed it, then, as I say, you're non-compliant. Recent tests show that ExxonMobil's premium HDME 50 is produced at 0.047%. So it provides the operator with an additional peace of mind. The viscosity of 12 centistokes is important, as it's the recommended thickness of the fuel when injected into the engine. If a product is lower, such as with marine gas oil, it may need to be chilled to increase the thickness to get to the optimum spray. Flash point is also important, as it's an indication of a product's volatility. Generally, the higher the better, which makes it safer for use in boilers. One last point to note. Each refinery has a different set of units. It can vary in configuration and could have different crude feedstock. So that means that an ECA fuel is more likely to be offered regionally as opposed to globally. One of the confusing and often misused terms is fuel stability. The definition of stability is this is the potential for a fuel to change condition in certain circumstances depending on its resistance to breakdown. Fuel stored for long periods can become unstable. The asphaltene content can precipitate out of suspension, causing the formation of sludge. This can block filters and pipes, leaving the product in the tanks in an unpumpable state. The breakup is dependent on the nature of the liquid hydrocarbons in which the asphaltenes are actually suspended. Once a fuel has chemically broken down, there is little way to reverse this satisfactorily. The second of the confusing terms is fuel compatibility. The definition is this. It is the tendency of fuels to produce deposits when mixed together. The issue may immediately occur when that mixing happens. There are a number of precautionary measures that can be taken. Avoid mixing the fuels. Store fuels separately until you can complete compatibility testing. Don't mix straight-run fuel with a cracked one, so one that's been further processed chemically. Steer clear of mixing fuels with greater similar densities. Ultimately, good handling is the key, plus knowing, of course, what you have purchased in the first place. Worst case, the vessel can lose power. So how can you mitigate against instability or incompatibility? Ultimately, by testing. There are 3 sediment tests covered within ISO 8217. They all use the hot filtration test method and aim to define the total amount of sediments contained in a fuel sample. The ISO 10307-1 method is used to determine sediment levels in distillate fuels. And the -2 method, the last 2 that you see on the slide there, is due to ascertain the levels of sediments in residual products. These tests will determine if a fuel is thermally stable and able to maintain its asphaltenes in suspension. From a compatibility testing, a good on-board way to test compatibility is to use, which includes residual and distillate fuels, is the spot test method that you can see there at the bottom. The ideal percentage mix is 50-50, as this is the worst case scenario of these products mixing in your tanks. Now, one of the test fuels for the spot test method must be a residual fuel. Otherwise, there won't be any negligible asphaltenes to fall out. So trying this with a distillate and a distillate, the spot test is irrelevant. What it will probably show, and we found this with our premium HDME 50 being tested against other distillates using this method, is that it's actually the coloration or the pigmentation that comes out of the product as well. So you can use the sediment testing and compare it that way. Now, talking of premium HDME 50, and these are some of our experiences that we have introduced into the Northern European ECA. Let me share a little bit more about these two products and how they differ in characteristics. ExxonMobil's premium HDME 50, as its name says, HD is heavy distillate marine fuel. It's a good fit for large marine engines that currently run on residual fuels. It also meets and exceeds the RMD 80 specification. Premium HDME 50 took about 4 years to develop and is created using higher value molecules that come out of the distillate stream from the refinery. And you can see this in a very simplified chart here as well. The residual products are generally coming out at the bottom after distillation, but HDME 50 uses the distillate stream. It's worth highlighting here that the higher viscosity of this makes the handling on board much easier compared to products such as marine gas oil. As mentioned at the start, the key benefit is for the safer management of fuel switchover compared to a marine gas oil on entering or leaving an ECA, as well as safe operation of boilers whilst within an ECA. ExxonMobil Premium AFME 200. This, of course, was designed to meet the 0.10% sulfur cap within the ECAs. It also captures some of the additional benefits, such as the high viscosity, thus also easing switchover. It's also higher flash point, makes it safer in boilers. Premium AFME 200 is a cleaner product, so it means it contains lower contaminants and lower metals, such as the aluminium and silicon that you often see in residual products. Commercially, it is guaranteed to meet and exceed to RME 180. Some people have asked if Premium AFME 200 was introduced to replace HDME 50. The answer, quite simply, is no, it was not. They exist together as they're produced from different locations. The process for manufacture of both products is a proprietary ExxonMobil process. This product is available in Southampton. But going back to my earlier point, each refinery has a different setup and different configuration. So it's not possible to make Premium HDME 50 in our UK refinery and or vice versa. One other consideration that a lot of people neglect to consider is the effect that fuel choice has on lubrication. In using a low sulfur fuel, the equipment builders recommend a low base number cylinder lubricant. The higher the sulfur content, you generally need a higher base number. This is because it's needed to neutralize some of the sulfuric acid that is created in the engine. The picture on the left shows that using a good quality product such as Mobilguard 525 compared to a 40 BN cylinder oil. The grooves on the top left show that the piston is much cleaner, which translates to less scuffing and less engine wear. It's even more obvious here in the image on the right, where the heavy deposit buildup will accelerate engine wear. Just another consideration when operating a fleet of vessels. So with the upcoming sulfur caps, I've been asked what is ExxonMobil's view of the future. As mentioned at the start, my crystal ball isn't always clear, but I'd like to share the latest from one of my senior company advisors. To determine whether the 0.5% sulfur cap is implemented from 2020 or 2025 needs some in-depth research. In other words, to make a decision on data and not just on gut feel. ExxonMobil has a long-term view and invests billions of dollars based on data-driven predictions. The good news is that IMO has now started to undertake a fuel availability review. This will allow experts in the industry to get together, to gather key data, and determine how the industry can meet the 2020 or 2025 deadline. Hopefully the data will be available in 16 months so that decisions can be taken, which in turn will allow the industry to make those investment decisions. So what does that mean from a refiner's standpoint? There are plenty of considerations. It's not only marine products that are produced at a refinery. There can be conflicting streams that often take priority for economic reasons. Questions that we've been asked and that we will want to have the answers to: will there be enough 0.5% products available? What will these products look like? You see the differences even based on the 0.1%, very different in nature. Will I still be able to get high sulfur fuel oil as I have scrubbers fitted? The refining investments are huge. If we just take our refinery in Antwerp in Belgium, we have undertaken a review and have decided to install a delayed coker unit. This will help to take the residual products that normally comes out of a refinery, to run it through the DCU and to produce higher value products. This is installed, or to be installed, at a cost of $1 billion US. It's going to take 3 years to install. It'll be operational as of 2017. So it will turn the residual products away. Because premium HDME 50 comes out of the higher value distillate stream, that product will be still available, but a lot of the residual products will be changed to higher value products. So it's not only about the money, however, it's about the resource and the expertise to implement these sorts of units. So really it's important that the assumptions of the study and its outcome are realistic and achievable, not only by ExxonMobil, but also by the fellow refiners. And these decisions will need to be taken at an individual refinery level. So, in summary, I hope sharing some of ExxonMobil's insights and experiences to date has been a benefit to you. We've made ECA fuels, both ECA category and marine gas oil, more available. We will continue to develop new fuels, not only within an ECA, but also outside of the current ECAs, because vessels need to have ECA products when they cross the imaginary line in the ocean. These products will enable an operator to switch over in an easier way, and also to allow them to be safer when using these products in boilers. A lot goes into product development, and that's why the technological leadership approach that ExxonMobil takes and excels in, I hope we continue to use this knowledge not only now, but also over the next few years. Thank you very much.